Hi everyone. So we are continuing the D module and today we are doing a D4 which is properties of numbers. So in this topic what we are going to see is predominantly we'll be talking about factors and multiples. These are the main two concepts, and then at the end we will have something related to the last digit and the cyclicity part as well. So let's start with this. The first part is factors and multiples. So factors and multiples, suppose let's take a number 24, and if we want to factorize, or if you want to write this 24 as product of two numbers, we can write it in many ways. For example, 1 into 24, or let's say 2 into 12, or 3 into 8, or 4 into 6, and so on. So these are all the factors of 24. There are total 8 factors of 24 if you count 4 pairs, 8 factors. Multiples if we talk about, obviously in simple words we call it as 24 के table में जो number आने चाहिए, they are called as the multiples of 24. 24 2s are 48, 3s are 72, 4s are 96, 5s are 120, and so on. So in simple words, multiples can be infinite because it's like you added 24 in the previous number, you will keep on getting the next number, and so on. And whereas factors is always going to be a limited number, multiples can be infinite. So that gives us one more relation, that number of factors for any number is always less than or equal to the multiples. This is a very quick introduction what factors, what multiples are. Now we will see how to calculate factors of any given number. For that, the first step is very critical, which we call it as prime factorization. So 24 can be prime factorized as 2 raised to 3 into 3 raised to 1. The third step that you all are seeing, prime factors में convert करना है, is what we are looking for basically. Now the part that I'm talking about, calculating the number of factors for any given number. For example, 24 is a very small number, so we could have manually written the factors, the numbers which are going to divide 24 completely. But suppose if the number is very huge, obviously you can't do the manual work. There has to be something like a formula oriented, some sort of thing wherein which we can just substitute the values and get the answer. And that is exactly what we are going to explore right now. The first part is obviously a lengthy method, and then eventually we'll end up getting the shortcut formula part of that. So pay attention. Same number 24, prime factorization we already know, 2 raised to 3 into 3 raised to 1. Now if we just break down all these powers, this is what we have. And if someone asks you what are the 8 factors of 24, so what you are going to do, you are going to multiply each of the powers of 2 with all the powers of 3. For example, you will multiply 2 raised to 0 with both 3 raised to 0 as well as 3 raised to 1. So when you multiply 2 raised to 0 into 3 raised to 0, you get 1. 2 raised to 0 into 3 raised to 1, you get 3, and so on. The cycle will keep on repeating itself. So someone asks you, which are those 8 factors? This is how you can easily figure them out. Multiply each of the numbers from left side with each of the numbers on the right side, and that's how you get the 8 factors. And if you notice the pattern, you will realize on left side you have 4 choices, on the right side you have 2 choices. 4 into 2, you get 8 factors. Now what usually happens is examiners would most of the time will be concerned with how many factors and not which are the factors. So your focus is also to get the answer how many factors. So if you observe, 24 has 2 prime factors, 2 and 3. 2 has a power of 3, 3 has a power of 1, and you see that left side you have 4 choices and right side you have 2 choices. And if you understand that, all they are doing is just add 1 to the power and multiply. So 3 plus 1 you get 4, and 1 plus 1 you get 2. 4 into 2, 8 factors, and that is what the formula is all about. So suppose there is any big number, you want to calculate the number of factors, the first thing is going to be very critical, which is the prime factorization. So suppose you prime factorize the number like this in a generic form, where p1, p2, p3 are the prime factors, a, b, c are the powers of that prime factors. And how do we calculate the number of factors? We just simply add 1 to the powers and multiply everything. So formula becomes a plus 1 into b plus 1 into c plus 1 and so on. So remember this, folks. This is a very, very important part of this topic. Now let's continue this theory. So there are certain notes. Suppose in a perfect square. So let's consider a perfect square. 400 prime factorization is 2 raised to 4 into 5 raised to 2. 20 का square है ये. And if you observe a pattern, the prime factors of a perfect square will always have a even power. The prime factor of a perfect square will always have a even power, and that is the note that you are going to remember. The first note as far as perfect squares are concerned, and this is applicable to all the perfect square. You can generalize this blindly, don't worry. The second note, obviously, now suppose if somebody asks me 400 के कितने factors है, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add 1 to the powers and multiply everything. And because we have just now seen that a prime factor of a perfect square always has an even power, so for calculating the number of factors, when we add 1 to it, it becomes odd, and we multiply all the odd numbers, the result is also odd. Basic mathematics, I hope you understand that. And that is what is going to be the second note is all about, that the total number of factors for any perfect square is always going to be odd. So remember this note as well. So these are the two notes which are related to the perfect square. Similarly, there is one more related to perfect cube, which is obviously, let's consider an example of a perfect cube. So suppose 8000, which is 20 ka cube, and the prime factorization is 2 raised to 6 into 5 raised to 3. Now when you observe the powers of a prime factor, you would not able to understand, because sum is odd. I mean, one of them is odd, one of them is even. We can't generalize really anything. But if you observe into more detail, what you end up realizing is that for any perfect cube, the power of a prime factor is always going to be a multiple of 3. The power of a prime factor is always going to be a multiple of 3. And that is again applicable to all the perfect cubes out there. So these are the two notes which will help you to simplify any questions related to this particular idea. The next part is writing a number as a product of co-prime factor. Now co-prime factors again is very critical. For example, same number 24. Again, the first step is very, very important, which is prime factorization. So once you prime factorize the number properly, what they say is, now this power 2 raised to 3, they say that don't separate it out, don't break it down and separate it out like this. One side you write 2 raised to 2, other side you write 2 raised to 1. Because when you do that, now next time when you try to take anything common from all these two brackets, you would realize that 2 will be a common factor as well. And if 2 is also the common factor, then they won't be co-prime to each other. And that is the reason why you're not gonna break this down like this. Otherwise, they won't be co-prime. So what do you do ideally is, don't try to break down the power, keep the numbers separate. For example, something like this. 2 raised to 3 on one side, 3 raised to 1 on other side. Now when you try to take common from both the numbers, you would realize except 1, there is nothing really is common. And that means they become co-prime to each other. So this is one way of writing this, and the simplest way that you should not forget ever is 1 into the entire number, because if you remember the note, 1 is always co-prime with all the other numbers. So basically the number is a smaller number, so obviously the number of ways of writing it as a product of co-prime factors is also only 2 ways for 24, and these are those 2 ways. So again, the emphasis is on the prime factorization, because that is what it is all about. Okay, now the second idea is basically last digit and cyclicity. Now last digit and cyclicity is very, very interesting topic. The simple word in a simple word with which we can define cyclicity is the number of powers of any digit after which the last digit repeats. So what we are going to do is, we are going to do it for every digit, because we don't know in exam which will be the last digit out of all the 10 digits that we have available with us. So it is very important for us to know the cyclicity of all the digits. I mean, which for which digit the last digit repeats after which power, the last digit repeats after whichever power is called as the cyclicity. So let's start with 2. For 2, 2 raised to 1 is 2, last digit. 2 raised to 2 is 4. 2 raised to 3, 8. 2 raised to 4, 16. That means last digit is 6. And 2 raised to 5 is 32. That means after the fourth power, in the fifth power, 2 raised to 5, 32. The last digit 2 again repeats itself. So after the fourth power, the last digit is repeating. That means 2 has a cyclicity of 4. 2 has a cyclicity of 4. Similarly, we are going to do it for each of the digits. For example, suppose when we take so there, before we go to the other digits, suppose there is a question. Suppose last digit of the question will be like this: last digit of something raised to something. Now, if there would have been any other number before 2 as well, for example, suppose the question would have been what is the last digit of 3, 2, 7, 8, 9, 2, such a huge number, raised to 1, 4, 7, 9. Suppose the question would have been this and not maybe this simple. This is not simple actually, but still. The point is whatever is ahead of 2, it all doesn't matter. It is all irrelevant for you, because again you are going to be only concerned with the last digit. So remember this, don't be scared if examiner tries to fool you with such ideas, such tricks. Don't be afraid. For you it is last digit which matters the most. So for you this question still would have been 2 raised to 1479 ka what is the last digit. The process is pretty simple. What you just simply do is divide the power with the cyclicity of the last digit. Listen to this carefully. Divide the power, which is 1479 in this case, with the cyclicity of last digit. Last digit is 2, and we have just now seen that last digit of, cyclicity of 2 is 4. So we are going to divide this power by cyclicity of 2, which is 4. When you do that, you end up getting a remainder. Just tell me what is the remainder if you divide 1479 by 4. When you divide 1479 by 4, you end up getting the remainder as 3. And once you get the remainder as 3, you are just going to find out what is the last digit of 2 raised to 3. So if you remember, last digit of 2 raised to 3 is 8, and that means this number 2 raised to 1479 will also have a last digit of 8. So this is how you figure it out, the last digit for any of the questions that you will tackle after this. Very simple idea. Divide the power by the cyclicity of last digit, and hence you should know cyclicity of all the digits, because you don't know in exam which digit will be the last digit. You just figure out the remainder. Remainder is 3. So 2 raised to 3 ka whichever is the last digit, that becomes your answer. Remember that. Same is going to be the question. The next one, 2 raised to 2684 का क्या है last digit. Same process. 2684 को 2 के cyclicity यानी 4 से divide करो. You realize you get the remainder 0. So 2 raised to 0 यानी 2 raised to 5 का जो भी last digit होगा, 2 raised to 4 का sorry जो भी last digit होगा, in this case it is 2 raised to 4 is 16. 6 is the last digit. So 2 raised to 2684 का भी last digit होगा 16 यानी 6 last digit होगा 6. This is how you figure it out. So remainder 1 आया तो 2 raised to 1 यानी 2 last digit. Remainder 2 आया तो 4. Remainder 3 आया तो 8. Remainder 0 आया तो 6. That's how you do these kinds of questions. So now obviously we have done the quick examples for 2. Obviously we need to figure out for all the other digits. So for 3, let's club something which have the similar cyclicity. So suppose 0, 1, 5, 6 have the last digit has a cyclicity of 1. Why? Because whichever power you take for all these digits, 1 raised to anything is 1, 0 raised to anything is 0, 5 raised to anything, the last digit will always be 5. You can verify that. 5, 25, 125, 625. 6 के लिए भी same process. 6, 36, 216 and so on. So these all digits, the last digit is always going to be the same. So they have a cyclicity of 1. For 4 and 9, the cyclicity is 2 because 4 raised to 1, 4, 4 square 16, 4 cube 64. The last digit is repeating after the second power. Same is the case for 9. Then for 2, 3, 7, 8, the last digit cyclicity is 4 because you realize that after the fourth power again the last digit repeats. You just have to take the powers and you will realize that after the fourth power the last digit repeats. This is how you remember all these ideas and you know the process. Then divide the power by cyclicity of the last digit. You figure out the remainder for whichever is the remainder, you just take the power, and whatever is the last digit, that becomes your answer. Then after this, the last part of this is concept of trailing zeros and the highest power. Now how do we get the 0? So obviously we get the 0 by 110. And how do we get a 10? We get a 10 by 1, 2 and 1, 5. So suppose one sample question, how many zeros are there at the end of 10 factorial? 10 factorial is a pretty huge number. Zeros यानी we are looking for 10. So you understand that you have 110 ready made, and 110 you will get from 5 and 2. So because you have 2 10s, so in short you are going to have 2 zeros at the end of 10 factorial. Now when we keep on increasing this, so the simple idea is trailing zeros or zeros at the end, or how many zeros that you can extract, one and the same thing. Zeros you get by 10, 10 you get by 1, 2 and 1, 5 in simple words. So just to generalize this idea, now what we can do is, as a shortcut method, obviously 2 being a smaller number, you would realize that it will be always present in more numbers. As you can see at the end of 10 factorial, I mean in 10 factorial there are so many 2's out there, but you are not concerned with 2's or 5's individually. You are concerned with a 0, and a 0, for a 0 you need a 10, and 10 is made by 1, 2 and 1, 5. So 2 being a smaller number will always be more in number, but 5 being a bigger number will always be less in number. So that, you know, shortens our workload, which actually tells us that boss, you should not bother about the number of 2's, but indirectly you should bother about number of 5's, because for 5's you need the equal 2's as well to combine. So 5's जितने भी होंगे उतने 10's बनेंगे, उतने zeros बनेंगे. So indirectly, number of zeros, number of trailing zeros, how many zeros that you can extract, these three types of questions are same as number of 5's that you can extract, the powers of 5's that you can extract, and so on. Pay attention to all these kinds of language where examiner will try to fool you using all these trickeries, but you should not be. So conclusion, number of zeros will depend on 5's and not number of 2's. Now again we can do this in a very, very simple way. 15 factorial, just extract 5 and you realize there are total 3 5's present. So there are total 3 zeros present. Then for 20 factorial, there are 4 5's present and there are 4 zeros present. For 25 factorial, this becomes interesting. People will say 5, but you realize in 25 you are going to have 2 5's. So actually there will be 6 5's present, and that means there will be not 5 zeros, but there will be 6 zeros present. Now suppose there is a huge number, 100 factorial. Now obviously we can't manually figure this out. What we will do is just forget the factorial sign, just divide the 100 by 5, just divide the number by the power that you are wanting to extract, which is 5, and just figure out the quotient. So if you divide 100 by 5, you get the quotient as 20, and you keep dividing that. So 20 divided by 5 again, you get the quotient as 4. Then you again try to divide, and when you do 4 divided by 5, you will realize it is not divisible anymore. And the moment it is not divisible anymore, that is where you stop. And whatever the quotients that you have got so far, just add them. So 20 plus 4, you get 24 fives, यानी 24 zeros are present in this particular number 100 factorial. This is the best way, the shortcut way, which is simply divide the number and keep on noting down the quotient and keep on dividing the quotient unless it is not possible, and at the end just add all the quotient. Similarly, suppose even a bigger number, 500 factorial, but now for us it is not scary anymore. Just divide 500 by 5, you get quotient as 100. Divide 100 by 5, you get 20. 20 by 5, you get 4. And when you divide 4 by 5, you realize it is not divisible anymore. The moment it is not divisible anymore, that's where you stop. And once you have stopped, just add all the quotients. So 100 plus 20 plus 4, you get 124 fives are present, yani 124 zeros are present at the end of 500 factorial. Now, same question can be asked in a different way. As I was saying, what is the highest power of 5 that can divide 500? The same part that we have been doing so far. So keep in mind the number of 5s in the denominator as the number of 5s in the 500 factorial. So highest power of 5, how many 5s you can extract, how many powers of 5 you can extract, how many zeros you can extract, how many zeros at the end are one and the same type of question, and this is how you figure them out. Obviously there will be more sub ideas involved in this, but we'll be doing that all when we do the questions. So folks, that's it for today from this application of numbers. If you have any questions, any doubts, please let us know. We will be happy to assist. Thank you so much.